Hello and welcome to Public Conscience. The program draws attention to issues of good governance, citizen participation, and corruption. The program is brought to you by the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMORG, in partnership with the MacArthur Foundation. I am Chidozie Obonne with Esther Bassi.
Thanks for joining us. The spelling of PRIMORG is PRIMORG.
On Public Conscience, we seek to increase the level of accountability in governance and promote citizens' participation and involvement to hold leaders accountable. We raise issues of national importance to increase your consciousness as a citizen.
Well, in today's program, the focus is on the accountability and transparency of the national budget. Yes. Nigerians are still reacting and reflecting on the recent allegations made by Budget, a civic tech organization renowned for promoting budget transparency and accountability in Nigeria. This budget came out with a report on the 2025 budget after scrutinizing it. They said a total of 11,122 projects worth 6.93 trillion naira were inserted in the 2025 budget by the National Assembly.
Well, according to the 18-page report, the insertions represent about 12.5% of the 54.993 trillion naira budget signed into law by President Bola Tinubu. According to budget, some of the most glaring anomalies include 1,477 streetlight projects worth 393.2 billion naira, 538 boreholes totaling 114.5 billion naira, and also 2,122 ICT projects valued at 505.79 billion naira. There is also a 6.74 billion naira earmarked for empowerment of traditional rulers. While budgets of ministries like Ministry of Agriculture, Science and Technology, and Budget and Economic Planning, we are said to have received bloated allocations at the end of the day.
At other times, the concerns raised by budget are called budget padding. However, the point has always been made before now that the National Assembly is empowered to deliberate on budget proposals and make alterations to the annual appropriation bill. The national budget is adjudged as the most important national document after the Constitution. This is the more reason citizens like you and I must be inquisitive and also bothered about how budgeted funds are deployed.
Absolutely. Corruption has been a perennial problem of budget, if you ask me, and execution is also a big issue. According to the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Professionals of Nigeria, CIFIPN, 70 to 75% of Nigeria's budget is lost to corruption at all levels. But for you out there, how much do you know about the national budget, which you should be interested in, and how much do you follow up when it is passed into law? What do you make of the allegations saying that nearly 7 trillion naira was inserted in the 2025 budget? Why is the budget process in Nigeria prone to corruption and all sorts of compromise? And how can we address the menace of corruption in budgets? From where should we start?
Many questions, does it begging for answers, but for you out there, be ready to join us through phone and text messages during this conversation. The WhatsApp phone line to send your message is 09022 656167. That is 09022 2656167. Please indicate your name and your location while sending this message.
Please begin to send your message as soon as possible to 09022 656167. That is 09022 656167. We'll also give you numbers to call shortly.
Well, if you just joined us, the spotlight is on a recent report by Budget, a civic tech organization, saying that upon close scrutiny, certain strange projects were found in the 2025 budget Budget claimed there were over 11,000 questionable projects worth 6.3 trillion naira in current budget, among others.
Who are joining us live to break down and analyze, dissect and analyze the report by Budget and the perennial problem of corruption in budgeting in Nigeria. We've been joined by Dr. Omar Yakubu, Executive Director of Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. We'll also be joined by a representative of Budget to break down this information, the report, the more. We'll be joined by Caroline Aninta, Program Officer, Budget Nigeria. But let's start off with Dr. Omar Yakubu, who is already here. So we are talking about the budget and a report released by Budget, which is a civic tech organization that are renowned for looking into budget, the execution, the items there. And the issue they raise is that there are 11,000 projects that were inserted. They call them different names, they label them different names, and they say that they fingered at some of them as anomalies. I don't know if you have seen that report, and maybe let's start with your reaction to that report. But if you have not seen it, the issue is that 11,000 projects were inserted, worth 6.93 trillion naira, and they say some of these projects, some of them are empowerment for local government, for traditional rulers. Some of them they call them different names. That looks like we are joking in this part of the world.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. But before we even get into the details of that discrepancy or anomalies we talk about, you see, one crime, I will call it a crime we commit, is that the one we're preparing budgets is not usually from bottom up, it's top down. Meaning the federal government and the legislators just sit down and draft what they want to draft. So it's like somebody being sick for malaria and you're treating me for typhoid. First of all, are those things necessary? So we have to even evaluate whether those things in the budget are what the citizens need. That is why you see for decades now, especially from 1999 to date, a lot of budgets there is little impact on poverty, little impact on security, little impact on healthcare, little impact on water systems, on education, on all various sectors of the economy. Now that means the budget process already has a problem fundamentally in the first place, because it is not citizen-led and citizens are not the ones imputed in that budget. So that's the first layer. And that is what would automatically give birth to all the problems you are seeing, the insertions, which we call actually is criminalities, where people insert highly inflated budgets. Different organizations have done analysis where you say a budget, a borehole, for example, is estimated at over 200 million naira, or you see a street light over 100 million naira. This is because of the process of insertions where this National Assembly members, this at the federal level, and let's not forget the same goes in at the state level as well. Though they might not be insertions by the state assembly members, but the governors ensure that they insert all these things that are not citizen-led decisions, where they put these things so that they, because of the money they will extract. So it's just basically a cesspool of corruption.
Oh, so you just, if I get you correctly, faulted the process. So what can you now? So what is the right process to budgeting, or what should be, and it's not?
Yeah, a budgeting that is meant for development, that is meant for impact, has to be citizen-led. Meaning you go to the constituencies to request or to assess what their needs are. If you don't do an assessment of what the country needs from the local government upwards, then the budget is going to be faulty. So that's the first layer. Which is why you see every year you get to see that there's what do you call boreholes, you do ACs, cars, and all what have you.
Okay, we have Caroline Aninta joining us again, Program Officer at Budget Nigeria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so I was trying to get you to shed more light on the discrepancies as mentioned in your report, in budget report?
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, first of all, our report focused on insertions, and by insertions we mean the introduction of like new projects or line items into the budget, typically by the legislature, which is the National Assembly. And the 2025 budget as passed by the National Assembly was significantly altered from what the president originally proposed. And what's especially concerning is that over 11,000 projects worth 6.93 trillion were inserted into the budget without transparency or alignment with national priorities. And how we uncovered this was by carrying out a comparative analysis of the proposed and approved budget documents.
Okay.
And I know that would say, oh, what's so special about this year?
Because I was going to ask that. I was going to ask you what's so special, because budget padding has been an annual ritual. Do you remember last year we had a senator even being banned from the Senate because of raising such issues? So go on.
Okay.
What is special?
So I'd like to correct you on something. Our report is not on budget padding, it's on insertions. There's a difference. Like
What's
I
the
said,
difference?
Insertions is the introduction of new projects or line items. But for padding, that's the inflation or duplication of budget figures, either by increasing the cost of existing items or adding fictitious items. So what makes this year's one special is, like you said, we've done this over the years, but we've never seen such a high number of value of insertions. So that's what makes it special, in your own words. Thank you.
Okay, so that is what meant. Okay, but let's get to, you mentioned some ministries that got over bloated projects. Tell us more about those red flags you tried to raise in that direction. You mentioned the Ministry of Agriculture and Technology, Science and Technology, then also Budget and Economic Planning.
Yes, so the Ministry of Agriculture had over 4,300 inserted projects, which is worth more than 1.72 trillion. And so Science and Technology, had insertions of about 994 billion, and Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning had 1.1 trillion insertions. And these ministries were likely used as dumping grounds for projects.
Are you saying they don't have the capacity?
Yes, many of them don't have the technical capacity or mandates of these projects, and there's no clear evidence that the ministries were actively consulted before these projects were added to their budgets, and this creates implementation challenges as the agencies are stuck with projects they did not plan for or are not equipped to deliver. Yeah.
So if you say that there's no clear evidence that they are not aware that the insertion that they were going to get this extra projects in their ministries, how did you find this out?
We can't say for sure if they were aware or consulted.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's even look at the executive, because has there been any reaction from the National Assembly or the President, Tinubu-led executive, after this report was made public? What are they saying?
Sorry, can you come again? I didn't get that.
Let's look at how the executive or the National Assembly, how they are reacting to this report. This report saying that over 11,000 projects were inserted in the 2025 budget. Has there been any reaction from either the legislature or the presidency?
Okay, as of now, we've not received any direct or public reaction from the National Assembly or the executive arm. But we hope that the report serves as a wake-up call for them to follow due process of budgeting. Yeah.
All right. So I want to ask you a question on the reason why there is so much alarm on these inserted project? Is it that the communities where this project would be situated do not need it, or why so much on it?
Like I said earlier, to be honest, these are not padding, these are insertions. So, of course, they've been inserted most times due to maybe a particular legislator wants their own constituency to be properly developed and all, and it's sometimes for the betterment of the society. But the MBAs that they are putting these projects under, do they have the capacity to carry it out? That's where you see substandard projects, because people that were given the project to implement do not have the capacity to fully implement it. So that's why
so without that, there's nothing really wrong about insertion. It's just that the right people, you feel that the right people, they have not been given the job to do.
Oh well, yes. First of all, they've not been given the job to do, and then we also feel like insertions is the legislature overstepping their bounds, because they are taking the role of the executive. It's the executive that's supposed to write the budget. So inserting it is like the whole point of checks and balance has been destroyed or something. So it's not the duty of the legislature to insert items into the budget. And that's why our report has a recommendation of judicial clarity. Well,
Okay, I will let you tell us the recommendation after now. But just answer this question for me. Are you saying that the executive might be totally unaware of what the legislators did with insertion?
So like I said earlier, we don't know if they consult these MDAs before going ahead with the insertions. So we can't say for sure.
All right.
But all I know that is that this practice places, like, the ambiguity is eroding the principle of separation of powers, because that's not their duty. They're supposed to perform oversight functions and not insert items into the budget.
All right. Also, in your report, we saw budget calling on the Attorney General of the Federation for constitutional interpretation of the roles of National Assembly in adjusting budget. What do you intend to achieve with this?
Okay, so the Constitution does not actually say if the legislature, like the limit or the extent to which the legislature can perform their oversight functions on the budget. So what we mean is, we want clarity. Can lawmakers unilaterally introduce new capital projects into the national budget without the input of the executive? So that's what we want to know, and we need the Attorney General of Federation.
Okay. The other time you were also itching to tell us about the other recommendations of this report. Please, can you go ahead and share your recommendations with us as we begin to wind up?
Oh, okay. So the first one is executive leadership. We want the president we are recommending that the president must enforce stronger alignment between the budget and national plans. Then, like I stated, judicial clarity. The Attorney General should seek Supreme Court's interpretation of the legislature's powers. And then we recommend that agencies like the EFCC, ICPC should investigate, prosecute the misuse of budget. And then lastly, CSOs and citizens should be part of budget review and implementation, as this will help to track and limit frivolous insertions. So yeah, that's about it.
All right. We must thank you so much for doing your work, and we encourage you to stay on it and ensure that let's have them respond and do the right thing to move our country forward. We cannot get better without proper accountability and transparency. Thank you so much, Caroline Anita, Program Officer, Budget Nigeria. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. So if you just join us, it is Public Conscience, a production of the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, and we are discussing a report by Budget Nigeria that says 11,000 projects were inserted into the 2025 budget these projects worth nearly 7 trillion naira, and they are raising red flag. They are saying it is anomaly that some of the agencies that got the projects are not supposed to get them. And back in the studio, we have with us uh, Dr. Omar Yakubu. Dr. Omar Yakubu, thank you for being with us and your patience.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know if you have reactions to make from our conversation with our guests that join us from Caroline, that join us from on the phone. Let me just also say that Dr. Omar is the Executive Director of Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, CEFP. So I don't know if you have reactions from the conversation we just had with Caroline before we continue with you. Do you have any contribution to that?
Yeah, I like the clarity she gave regarding the difference between padding and insertions. Because paddings are usually, and let Nigerians be aware, paddings are when you inflate a contract by 10%, 100%, 200%. But insertions is clearly an introduction into what was not earlier planned. So when you plan to carry out a project, any mini project, then you bring a material or a component that is not aligned with that project, it totally distorts the national agenda, national development plan, or any plan you have that will lead to enhancement of security and economy. So invariably what she's saying, in other words, is those insertions are distorting national development, if we look at it from that way. So if you don't assess it from that area, you don't understand the danger of what these legislators are doing. It's not seriously only about the money, it's about distorting about a process that is already laid by the executive. So that's just one thing I wanted to expand based on what she said.
Well said, Dr. Yakubu. And we'll just stay with you, but we'll quickly open up the phone line and come back to you for more analysis of what is going on with our national budget. It has become a yearly ritual, and unfortunately, we find ourselves every year complaining of one issue or the other, because as at last year, even the ICPC announced a recovering over 5 billion naira from lawmakers and contractors. So it's not like we are saying something that is out of the that is not happening. It is something that has just come to disturb us as a people, and we must find a way to fight it. Esther, let's open up the phone line.
Okay, for you out there, please follow us on our social media platforms at official PRIMORG. PRIMORG is spelled PRIMORG.
And remember that this program is interactive. The WhatsApp phone line to send your message is 09022656167. 09022656167. This number is for messages only. Please begin to send your messages now to 09022656167. I want you to come into the conversation and tell us your mind. How much do you know about the national budget? I think that's a place to start. What do you make of the allegations of that nearly 7 trillion naira was inserted into the 2025 budget? Why is the budget process in Nigeria prone to corruption and all sorts of compromise? And where do we go from here? This is our country, the only country we have. How do we get it right?
We have a call.
Let's see who is here. Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name and where you are calling from?
Yemzi from Airport Road.
All right, Yemzi, let's hear you.
Yeah, I don't really see any infraction. I fear padding, because if the cost of project and budget this year, everything is just like 10 naira, and you go to the market, the prices have gone up, inflation has affected it, and rose to 15 naira. By the time you are going to do the project, you need more money than that, and that will be need for padding. So padding does not just come from let me say wickedness or bad heart. It comes from the price regulation. If they cut the project, National Assembly project at 20 naira, and by the time the next time you're going to execute the project, it has gone to 25 naira. If you want to do the project, you need for padding. you need to put your own personal money there and to say that. But when you talk about insertion, I think they did a lot of work because by comparing the last year package to this year, you can know the difference whether there is insertion or not. So I think both try, but I think I feel more of padding than insertion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yemzi, for joining us.
You're
And
welcome.
Yemzi said he sees padding and not insertion. I don't know the divide you belong to, but whatever it is, it is not good for us. Anything that will make us, lose our commonwealth and not use it to develop ourselves. But let me ask you, Dr. Yakubu, because the conversation has been going back and forth. Do you also think these insertions could have been done in connivance with the executive? Because, like the budget, they are unsure whether they consulted the executive before sleeping in the project.
Okay, I like to always give a context before I give you an answer. You see, what's leading to all this problem is we don't want to fix our political selection or election process. You see, these legislators are under heavy pressure from the constituents to deliver goods and constituencies. What do you call it?
Consensus project.
No, not that. There's a word they like to use.
Good governance.
Palliative.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to deliver palliative, and the only way they can deliver palliative is when they do these insertions, pull out the money and start sharing. That's just what happens. This is just like jamboree or bonanza monies for palliatives to be shared to the constituents. So the reason, because INEC has refused to be providing real good elections where there is less pressure on the politician to be looking for money to be sharing to his constituents. That is what is causing all this pressure and causing all this money. So back to your question on whether the executive were aware. We have no evidence, we from civil society, but sometimes there is something you say philosophically where silence becomes complicity. So if they are not aware and it happens and nothing is being done, then it means they are complicit. So that's the only way I can.
So for you, you expected a rage from the executive,
Exactly.
saying, "How come these things are in here?"
Exactly.
By now, at least with this expose by budget, they should have raised the matter and say, "Our brothers in National Assembly, how did you people get these things inside?" Because right?
Yeah, very true. And you can see there is silence, which is why today, June 4th, today or 5th, you can see they have not implemented the capital component of the budget because they're even still implementing 2024, some say 2023. Because of all these insertions bring distortions. You can't even plan, you can't execute because of all these things. So one, in my own view, they could be complicit by silence. Nothing has been done. Secondly, if you insert budget, it could not be a crime if they say, because they could say this is their own view. So the executive too has the power to accept or reject. That conversation has not taken place. We just see them signing and they just move on. There's no level of information or transparency on what has transpired. Nigerians should know, okay, did you agree or you did not agree? That has not happened as well. So these are all bordered around transparency issues that Nigerians and your radio station, Kiss FM, need to continue asking these people, and we have not seen any response in that regard.
Okay, it's good that
and citizens are left to wallow in their thoughts.
I wanted to just ask, what's now the role of citizens, Nigerians out there in this? Do we have any role to play as to questioning, or do you think citizens are not aware of all of these insertions or infractions in the budget?
Yeah, no, psychologically, I think Nigerians are tired because what elicits citizen engagement is when they see action and response from government. So if you look at the data, you find out specifically the ICPC, they are doing a lot in recoveries of all the corruptions around constituency projects and all of that. They are doing a lot. But that's one part of enforcement of the law. If they had gone fully to enforce the law by ensuring that prosecution takes place in the mismanagement of constituency allowance, Nigerians will be more aware, Nigerians will be more engaged. Because one of the good tool for citizens engagement is to see prosecution happening so that they have confidence in the government. But you can see, you can imagine a country where, from your earlier narration, you talked about 6.9 trillion. Now, apart from being 6.9 trillion, I think you mentioned about 12% of the whole national
Yes,
budget.
that 6.9 trillion form 12% of the whole
Now,
budget.
so imagine out of 100%, you have taken out completely 12%. Now you have not even come to the area of talking about even implementing the other ones that are actually supposed to be in the budget. And our budget implementation over the last 10, 15 years has always been less than 50%. So you see, you can add those problems. And there are other corruption components within. So yes, what you are doing, let's say at this radio station, is very critical. Citizens are now becoming more aware of that these things are happening. And there's a social side of it. At least now, when you see these people, you see them as ordinary people, that there's nothing really special about them. All they are doing is inserting monies into budgets and taking it out for themselves. So it's not like any dint of hard work, of any ingenuity, or they are developing any tool or anything. So it has its own social value. So it's not like citizens are not aware; they are aware. So when you see them, sometimes we say you see them, you shame them. And looking at them in that manner, you know that there's nothing really special about these people.
There's nothing really special about, but that's supposed to be special because leadership doesn't exist for nothing. Leaders are meant to develop a place, and when it doesn't happen, it becomes a real problem out there. I was asking who will save the day. One of the recommendation of budget was that they should look at the judiciary should look at that interpretation, try to interpret the law of those powers that belong to that gave the National Assembly the impetus to insert anything they want to insert. And but from your own perspective, who could bear the cat here? Is it the judiciary or who?
Yeah, that would be a strategic move. That recommendation is key because I recall it was during the early Obasanjo years, or maybe second term, I can't remember, where this insertion started, padding and insertion, different things. And it was, the motive was good, could be seen as good at that time because of the arguments they made. But analysts at that time made that recommendation that if you start giving power to the legislature to be taking powers of the executive, because from the legal perspective, that's what it is. The process of budgeting is an executive function, not a legislative function. But now, by practice, it has been accepted that the legislature are now being part of the executive budgeting process, and that is not part of their role. So sometimes when you start hearing court processes, let's be frank, it's an avenue for distraction because we know this is take time. But it's actually a good move if they could actually go to the court to interpret that when you send a budget to the National Assembly or State Assembly, they don't really have that power to add or reduce. But now, if you do that again, there's another danger. Okay, so what power do they have? Is it just to criticize or to say this is there, this is supposed to be there, or it's not supposed to be there? So these things are what the courts should.
But in other climes and where we copy this democracy, do we see lawmakers running after constituency projects, running after, because the inquisitiveness of some of our lawmakers, I think, is what is pushing some of the rot we see today, because our lawmakers are supposed to be pushing to get projects done in their, executed in their area and all that. Me, I think, from a personal opinion, I think it is not very good for our democracy, and I don't know what you think.
No, lawmakers can, I don't want to use the word lobby. Lawmakers can advocate for projects to come to their constituencies because they are the closest people to the closest to the people. So they're actually supposed to take the demands to the, that is fine. But the argument should be too about having a certain project in my constituency. That should be the argument, and it stops there. But not that you insert it, you insert the amount, then you even provide the contractor, because that's what happens. You provide the contractor to execute that thing, you collect the kickback, you share palliative. I don't know why we're not even talking about on TV and on radio. You see lawmakers on air saying they distributed 500 million, 1 billion, 2 billion as palliative in their constituencies. You see it every now and then, and nobody's talking about it. How much does the lawmaker earn to share 100 million naira or 200 million naira? So it's just not normal.
It's not just normal, and we cannot continue like this. Why do you think, or why is the budget process in Nigeria prone to corruption and all sorts of compromise? How do we address the menace of corruption in budgets? Where do we start from? Where do we start from is the big question here.
I mean, where do we start from? Looking at seeing that these insertions grow year on year on. We had lesser insertion last year, like over 6,000, and now we're having 11,000 2025. Where then
Maybe we need more development. That's why we're getting more insertion.
but then you you know that the BPP, the EFCC, and the ICPC, they are doing so much to see that, okay, we get some of our monies back, get some of these misappropriated funds. We have those soiled in corruption, right? We get this money back.
So
Let me
the anti-graft agencies are their best good enough?
Yeah, that's where I was going to. Do you think that there are some things that are not doing, or there is more to be done?
Honestly, if you analyze the political landscape, I'll tell you they're doing a lot. They're doing a lot because now, if you look at the budget, you talked about 6.9 trillion. Now, think about, let's just take that component. So let's not even go to the remaining 88% of the budget we're talking about now. Now, think about how much an ICPC and EFCC can do in tracking, recovering, prosecuting just 6.9 trillion in 1 year. Now we're just taking 1 year. Don't forget this was done 2024, 2023. In fact, it has been done for the last 10 years. So it really, really takes time. That's what I'm looking at in terms of context. But I will still advise that it's because they are focused on recovery of the monies and the assets. If they were prosecuting more, jailing more people, it would have been more effective so that the practice will stop. So that's what I'm advocating for. There needs to be more prosecution of criminality, not just recovery of assets. Because if you are saying recovery, you can't continue just, you are not a recovery agency. It's part of your mandate, yes, but you can't just be recovering. There has to be more prosecution of this kind of things so that it will stop.
What do you see as their bottlenecks in delivering on their mandates? The anti-graft agencies.
The major bottleneck is political interference. That's the major. All other things are minor. I believe they have the capacity. I believe their laws are strong enough. They have the capacity. But if you are operating like every country in toxic political environments, it's actually much more difficult to do these jobs as the law says they should be done.
It's unfortunate, but we must keep reminding them. Let's come to CSOs, because CSOs are usually supposed to be involved in budget. Unfortunately, budget also talked about CSOs should be more involved. It seems CSOs are not as much involved as they should be. What is your take on the role of CSOs in being able to bring out some of these issues to the fore and push the government to do the right thing?
The role of CSOs is to bring information to the public and bring it to the fore, including the media, and which is what I believe, at least at the federal level, that has been consistent, and I think it is okay. There's enough information and data coming from civil society organizations, media houses, your radio station, your TV stations, about all infractions in governance. There's enough information on that. But that is where the limit of where the CSO stops. Those actions taken by CSOs is supposed to lead to another action by government now, so that they will react. Now, where we're lacking is there is very low reaction from government. And
so you are about wrapping up on the CSOs, but let's even
of the information
the information they need. Let's even look at, let's say you are, because we have to move forward. We cannot continue like this. Where do we go from here is the big question that everybody will be asking. How do we make progress? How do we sanitize our budget system, our budget process, so that the reports of corruption back and forth, we reduce it to the barest minimum? Because without that, we are not going to make any significant progress.
Yeah, so the difference between civilization and the jungle is law. So as long as we're not implementing our laws, we are not too much different from the jungle. So we need to continue advocating, putting pressure for the laws developed by government itself for them to implement their own laws. And the laws are very clear. If you collect X amount of money for a certain project and you do not implement, the law says you should be prosecuted. That needs to be happening. If the law says you cannot insert any amount into a budget and you do it, you should be prosecuted. Or any sanction that needs to be implemented should be done. These are the things we just need to continue advocating for, unless, if not, it's threatening our development as a nation.
Are you expecting the President Bola Tinubu-led administration to react to this?
Well, whether he likes it or not, he has to react because he's somebody. He has said he wants to bring development to Nigeria. And what these reports are clearly saying that these things are going to impede whatever he wants to do for the country. So it is in the interest of the development of the nation to implement, to ensure budget implementation. Another thing we need to also, I just want to draw your attention to, is we are not even assessing budget implementation reports, and they are not releasing their reports. Every MDA is supposed to be having a budget implementation report, but we don't see them every year to see how far they have gone.
From you said that we don't do up to 50% or more than 50% in terms of implementation of our budget, and is a question mark, a big question mark. This year's budget is gulping over 50 trillion naira, and some of the monies that will be used to prosecute the budget, they are predicated on borrowings and bonds here and there. It is not good that we waste this money and also plunge our future, our generation unborn into debt.
Yeah.
But we must thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank
It is an ongoing conversation. Esther, we will not take our foot off the pedal because we have to continue to draw the attention of government that there are issues with the budget and it should be dealt with.
And also bring awareness to the citizens as often as we could.
This is where we'll be wrapping up the program this morning. Esther, we have to go.
Please visit our news website, primorgnews.org. That is primorgnews.org. For all the details of our reports and interviews, visit our website, www.primorg.org, to get all the information about PRIMORG.
And you can watch our videos on PRIMORG TV, our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to get reminders when we have a new post. We appreciate our guest, Dr. Omar Yakubu, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Public Integrity, CEPI. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And Caroline Anenta, Program Officer, Budget Nigeria, who joined us virtually. Public Conscience has the support of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. Get more information about the foundation on its website, macfound.org.
Join us again here when we have another episode of Public Conscience, and remember to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, at Official PRIMORG. I am Esther Bassi.
Remember that birth registration and certificates are free if your child is under 18. Help stop the corruption in birth registration and do not pay for birth certificates. Also remember that you can give us information or hint about corrupt acts through our phone at 09022656167 or info@primorg.org. I am Chidozie Ogbonnaya. God bless Nigeria.